listening to Voices of Customer Experience. I'm your host, Mary Drummond, and on this podcast, we shine the spotlight on individuals who are making a difference in customer experience. We also proudly bring you the very best of customer experience, behavior economics, data analytics, and design. Make sure to subscribe or follow us on social for updates. Voices of Customer Experience is brought to you by Worthix. Discover your worth at worthix.com. Today we're joined by author and international keynote speaker on gamification and behavioral design, Chou. Yukai is the original creator of the Octalysis Framework, is currently president of the Octalysis Group and founder of Octalysis Prime. Yukai has been a regular speaker and lecturer on gamification and motivation worldwide. His work has affected over 1 billion users across the world. I'd also like to give a warm welcome to my co-host for this season, Worthix CCO James Conrad. Welcome, James, and welcome to the show, Yukai.
Thanks for having me here.
I wanted to talk a little bit about gamification, which is the subject that you feel most passionate about, that you have dedicated your life to telling others about. And tell us a little bit about your definition of gamification and how you see it.
So gamification is basically combining all the fun and exciting elements of games into things that are important, productive, but possibly mundane or boring. So in life, there's a lot of things where we feel like we have to do it. We don't necessarily enjoy it, but it's just something that's a requirement. We have to do our training. We have to pay our taxes. We have to study for a class. And we usually feel like that's the requirement. We have to go to work. And we do that so that we can focus on the other side, which is the things we actually enjoy doing. And so a lot of my work is saying that, no, there doesn't have to be a barrier between the two. If you make everything important and enjoyable, then throughout your life, you're just playing, having fun, and your life is automatically better. So you don't have to be longing for weekends because throughout the whole week you're playing.
Well, that's great. Now, let me ask you something. How much is it actually gamification, or is it really the study of human behavior and how humans react to different stimulus in life, behaviors and drivers and psychology and all of that?
Well, it depends on how you want to define a game, right? Because to gamify means to make more like a game. And so it depends on what you think making something more like a game is. Now, I say gamification is really about what I call human-focused design instead of function-focused design. So instead of assuming people will take desired behavior and optimizing for efficiency, for usability, ergonomics, we optimize on motivation, engagement, excitement. And so if you think about games, right, games have no other purpose than to engage the mind, right? The moment a game's no longer fun, you leave the game, you play another game, you check your email, go to YouTube. So by studying what games does to engage our brains and apply that to other fields, it's literally motivational science. It's literally, some people call it behavioral engineering or gameful design, gameful UX. There's a lot of different terms, but at the end of the day, it's really about why would people come back to a game for 7, 8, 9 hours a day doing basically repetitive actions like throwing out a bird, throwing out a bird, throwing out a bird, or matching three gems, and applying that to something else. So I usually don't go into the semantics debate. The key is I've learned all my concept from game design, and I apply it to things like customer service, to steel factory manufacturing, to safe driving, and it works. So and people enjoy it. So I'm satisfied with that.
Excellent. And Yukai, this is James. You've developed a framework around this that you call Octalysis, which I found fascinating. It's on your website. Could you talk a little bit about Octalysis and some of the 8 core drives that you use to help understand human behavior and frame up the reasons that people do the things that they do and how that applies to games?
Yeah. So the Octalysis Framework is something I've created. I'm probably the most known for this framework. And first of all, it's called the Octalysis because it's an analysis based on an octagon shape. I just thought it's very intuitive, but sometimes I work with the clients for 6 months and then they have this epiphany and they realize that. But so there's the octagon, and on the octagon, there's what we call the 8 core drives of motivation. So every single thing we do, inside or outside of a game, is based on one or more of these 8 core drives. which means that if there's none of these 8 core drives there, there's zero motivation, no behavior happens. And so every person who listens to this show is listening because of one of these 8 core drives. It could be unpredictability and curiosity. They're curious, core drive 7 could be development and accomplishment, what they want to increase their skills. But without these 8 core drives, I wouldn't be here, the host wouldn't be here, the listeners wouldn't be here, nothing happens. And then on top of those 8 core drives, there's different natures of those core drives. So there's some, we call them white hat core drives versus black hat core drives. White hat core drives make people feel powerful, in control, they feel good, but there's no sense of urgency. So people tend to procrastinate. This is usually good for loyalty programs, long-term community management, employee motivation. Then there's black hat motivation core drives. And those core drives make people feel urgent, obsessed, even addicted. But sometimes in the long run, if that was the only motivator, it leaves a bad taste in their mouths because they feel like they're not in control of their own behavior. So those are usually better for one-time transactions. You want to get people's credit card or their donations or short bursts of activity, having a 2-week competition, because that could be kind of fun and thrilling. But if it's a year-long competition, most people don't like to be constantly competing with their coworkers, and it demoralizes the experience, and you see high turnover rate. So that's white hat versus black hat. Then we have what I call left brain versus right brain core drives. And it doesn't mean they're geographically on the left side versus right side of the brain, but they symbolically represent the logical brain, which is the left brain, and the emotional brain, the right brain. So the left brain core drives deal with what we call extrinsic motivation, things we do for reward, a purpose, or a goal, but we don't necessarily enjoy the activity itself. So once we obtain the reward, we hit our goals, or we get used to the reward, we stop doing the activity. But then the right brain core drives deal with intrinsic motivation, things that we do just because we enjoy doing it so much. We enjoy doing so much that we would even pay money to experience. And if we lost all our progress the next day, we would still want to hang out with our friends, play some basketball, do these fun activities. So my work is not just evaluating what motivation is there and how to increase behavior, but understanding the nature of it. Is it long-term? Is it short-term? Is it intrinsic, extrinsic? And go from there. So that's a pretty high-level summary of the Octalysis framework.
That's fascinating, Yukai. One of the things that a lot of marketers have been talking about recently is the idea of system 1, system 2 behaviors and how they relate to how people make decisions and how they market, etc. And I'm sure you've read Ehrenberg Bass and some of the work that's been done around this. How do you think about system 1, system 2, and heuristics and some of these things that marketers are grappling with in relation to how you've designed the Octalysis framework?
Yep. So the nice thing about the Octalysis framework is, and all these other models, is trying to explain the same brain, right? And so there shouldn't be like everything's totally separate. And so there's a lot of people who study how to match the Octalysis onto different frameworks and different behavioral models like Csikszentmihalyi's flow theory, as well as the Maslow's hierarchy. So the concept we're referring to, for the audience who don't know, I don't know if everyone knows, system 1 is usually our subconscious, primitive brain. We're constantly processing everything around us, and we're prone to priming. System 2 is more of our conscious neocortex brain, where we are processing things, that we're thinking hard, and we think that's our ego. That's in control. There's a general correlation to System 1 being more of the black hat core drives, while System 2 being more of the white hat core drives. And the reason is because System 1 relates to our what some people refer to more as the crocodile brain, the reptilian brain. And again, where it's located, things like that, that's people debate about it, but I think it is clear that there is parts that handle more primitive functions that all animals have, and there are parts that handle poetry that more advanced, intellectually advanced species have. And so, the System 1 things also correlate to the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy and also to the black hat core drives. So basically, these are about survival. These are about exploring new things, unpredictable curiosity, why we're addicted to gambling or loot boxes, let's say, or scarcity. Why do we want things that are just hard to get? Because those instincts kind of make us want to help us survive, right? avoiding danger and going after scarce resources, exploring new lands. And so that's why I talk about black hat makes people feel like they're not in control, because it feels like their brains are hijacked. It's like, oh, even though I want to do things that are purposeful and meaningful and changing my life, I end up doing what looks good in front of me. I end up binge watching Game of Thrones until 5 a.m. And so I feel like I'm hijacked. So you enjoy it, but you feel guilty. And system one is more correlated to the top of Maslow's hierarchy and to white hat, because that's more of that neocortex brain about who I am, who I want to be. And so that's the system that we want to engage that brain more. And if our behavior matches what we do in that zone, then we're happier. But we oftentimes don't get to it because we're often doing the black hat activity. So that's why the current, a lot of the popular things is that, hey, we use our neocortex to design marketing campaigns and sales pitches to someone else's neocortex or system two, but in fact, it's their system one, their subconscious brain, that's making all the decisions. And therefore, we should really focus our marketing on appealing to their system one, their subconscious brain. And, there's a variety of degrees of people liking it, not liking it, or it's too powerful. But that's, all these concepts are connected together in terms of how to do it well and the consequences after that.
Let me ask you something. Have you found a way to kind of hack it so that you can kind of use the white hat stimulus of the greater good, et cetera, by using black hat situations? So you get a little bit more of that maybe almost instinct behavior, but for a greater good?
Yeah. So this is, for instance, why people would pay their gym trainers to call them losers, right? It doesn't feel good when they're yelling at you and telling you you're the scum of the earth, but it feels bad. So it's black hat, the loss and avoidance. But afterwards, you thank them, right? You say, thank you for pushing me so hard, and I can achieve things that I have never done before.
Sure.
Because you use the black hat to drive back to what we call core drive to development accomplishment. So the black hat goes back to the white hat. Sometimes people feel like, hey, I want to, change, help the world, improve the environment. That's great. That's great. And they think about it all day long. They don't do anything until a crisis happens, or they read about some huge news, or sometimes they realize their electrical bill was too harsh. And so they're like, then they have some black hat. She's like, oh, okay, I better start do it today. And so I said, if you're motivated just by black hat alone, in the long run, you feel bad about it. But if you use the black hat, there's two ways to do white hat activities. Number one is to remove the black hat in your environment, which triggers, because you want to do things that are more spiritual, but every day you have deadlines, you have TV shows, you have Facebook, you're distracted. But so that's why people go into the mountains, right? They take a retreat, they go off the grid. So they remove the black hat around them, and now they can happily focus on the white hat. The other way is to use black hat to overcome the competing black hat. So like I said, you use black hat, you use even more unpredictable and curiosity, more random excitement, Easter eggs and mystery boxes to overcome your drive to binge watch Netflix, because it's like, hey, if I exercise, there's all these variable exciting rewards that might show up, and so those are the two mainstream strategies to deal with black hat and getting people to do what they wanted to do in the first place.
If you want to understand more about the science behind customer decisions, follow our blog at blog.worthix.com or find Worthix on your favorite social media. Getting your CX project off the ground? Start with the right foot by downloading our CX guides, ebooks, and playbooks on worthix.com today. You kind of touched on customer experience, and that's what our podcast is about. Most of our listeners are people who work directly with customer experience, who work on the front lines of delivering the best possible customer experience to clients. How do you think gamification could be applied in this industry, and what can we learn from what you have to offer?
In the case of customer service, most times what I see, there's two use cases of gamification. One is to motivate your customer service staff. Sometimes it's the sales staff, sometimes customer service staff, to provide better service, not just treat it as a job, not just reading a script, but actually caring, showing empathy, building relatedness and rapport. And sometimes, again, it's a technical issue, right? They really can't help. They really can't fix your broken product. But sometimes just saying things like, oh, I understand how frustrated, I understand this pain, that must be really difficult for you. Just some people feel like, oh, I'm understood, and they feel better. They feel like they have a better experience with the company. Whereas I'm sure we've all been through very frustrating conversations where you keep telling them the problem and they just read a script saying, well, based on blah, 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 it's impossible that you have this problem, or, you should do this. Like, no, I already did this. I told you.
Right? Our policy says you can't do this. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and they don't even admit to you that you have a frustrating problem. They're like, oh, we're in the right. You're the person who has a problem, and why are you talking to us? And it's just frustrating. I remember just someone saying that, just repeating the problem I have back to me. That was like so warm. Like, oh, they're not just sticking to corporate language. They're actually saying my language. And they said, yes, if I were in your shoes, I would be very frustrated too. I'm really sorry that this happened. Right? Just stuff like that, small things. And so that's the desired action. Then it's about the gamification, about how to motivate that behavior. I mean, there's all types of things that, hey, saying the right things has some kind of variable reward or surprises for that person, which what we see very often nowadays is the rating system, right? After the call, you give a number, and then they're placed on some kind of leaderboard. This is extrinsic motivation. Again, you're doing it not because you necessarily care or you enjoy the experience. It's because you want to rank higher, which is what. And the consequence of that is people saying, hey, you can give me a 10, right? You can give me a 10, right? And they just keep pestering saying, after I hang up, please give me a 10, okay? Right? And this is the extrinsic motivation come into play. By putting a number, a value of something and as a benchmark, and having people compete against each other and gaining status, you can improve that number for sure. But are you actually getting your final business metrics? That's unclear. Some companies I've seen, they did, let's see how many calls you can handle a day, right? That's how you're measured. If you are a salesperson or a customer service and you can handle more calls in a day, that's what makes you successful in this gamified environment. And what you see is that, yeah, everyone's getting more calls per day, but they're providing really crappy service. They're trying to hang up as quickly as possible.
Is that companies just using black hat motivators then to try to get their employees to perform better?
This is what we call extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation means that you do it to get the points. And again, it just means companies are doing bad design about desired behavior, right? So you do everything possible to get the points, and as long as the points are valuable, you'll do it. But the moment they get stale, you feel like you're plateaued, you stop doing the behavior. Like, you don't really care about the actual activity, you just want the points. Whereas sometimes having the social influence relatedness, having collaboration, group quests, peer mentoring, those things help a lot more. One thing that helps a lot is Core Drive 1 Epic Meaning and Calling, letting them understand the purpose, understanding their purpose and mission, and feeling like, hey, I'm not just doing my 9 to 5 and getting paid. I'm actually doing something that makes the world a better place. I actually did a study, and this is for a university call center to raise donation from alumni. And they had 3 groups. The first group, they show them, hey, if you raise donations, you'll get a commission. And check out, these are the people in the past who've made the top donations. You can make this much money if you are good at raising money. The second group, they said, hey, look at those people who are helped by this money. This student couldn't afford college, but now with the money raised, she got financial aid, and she graduated, she has a good job, and she made her parents, her family proud. And the third group was just the control group. Nothing was said. This is the day before they did the call. And the second group where they saw, wow, me doing the fundraising actually has impact in this world. Those people raised twice the amount of people than the first and the second and the third group, because they actually believe in it. They actually cared about it. And just like I said, Lego employees are really, really driven. A lot of people I've talked to there, they even turn down promotions and salary raises because they feel like their current position was better at fulfilling their epic meaning, which is inspiring creative play. They're closer to the customer, and they said, I'm just going to retire in this position. I don't ever want to climb the corporate ladder because I'm literally burning. They didn't say use these words, but I'm literally burning my life for this higher meaning, and that's meaningful for me. And I think at too many places, staff members just they don't think about their purpose and meaning in the work they do. So that's number one. The second one is you can gamify customers' behaviors, right? If you want them to reach out via the chat customer service line more, or call in more, or you want them to first solve their own problem or go into a forum and discuss among themselves and see if they can help each other out. Again, there's all types of desired actions, designs that I've seen in customer service, so it just depends on what the client wants.
The last core drive I wanted to touch on was core drive 5, which I thought was really interesting around social influence. And there's a lot of discussion with our clients, I'm sure yours as well, around how to best leverage, the power of social media and social influence, et cetera. And there have been some very public examples of failures on that over the last years. I wonder, as you're talking to clients and trying to help them grapple with this one and understand it, could you talk a little bit about it in this context, especially as it could relate to customer experience and the desire that customers have to buy certain brands over other brands?
The biggest misconception in terms of a social strategy is people think, social influence and relatedness is about getting people to spam their friends, right? It's about blasting messages. And so I have clients say, hey, look, we have all these social features, the friend button, yada, yada, all these things. So we have Core Drive 5, social influence. And I said, okay, so if you're a user, you just sign up to this service, and then it has all these friend buttons and telling you to bring all your Facebook friends. Do you actually feel socially appreciated? Do you feel connected to others? They're like, not really. I think I'll feel it's very gimmicky. Right? And this is back to what we talked about function-focused design versus human-focused design. You can have all the functions. Oh, we have all the friend buttons. All these features are there, but it's not human-focused. And we all lived as human beings for a few decades, right? So we're actually all small experts at human motivation. It's just a lot of times we don't use that empathy muscle. Like the moment we think, if I was a user, yeah, this is really lame. But we don't think about that. We think, oh, we need 7 social features, so let's build them. And so a lot of times the key thing is most people in this world feel unappreciated or underappreciated, right? So the best type of Core Drive 5 social influence related strategy is to somehow make people feel like they're appreciated more when they use your service, whether it's from their peers, from other customers, whether it's from your customer service staff. They feel like, wow, someone understands me, someone appreciates who I am, my uniqueness of what I've done. I think that's why they have little things like social prodding. Like some services make it very easy for a user to thank each other. To say, hey, click a button, thank you. It's like, oh, I logged in and I had 9 people clicking thank you, like thank me. That makes me happy. Let me stay on for longer, right? People, it doesn't matter what kind of service you offer. People go there for the experience, just like a restaurant business. We talk about people don't go to a restaurant to buy food. They go to a restaurant to have a food eating experience. So even if you have the best food possible, if you give them a bad experience, the waiter was rude, they're not going to come back, right? You don't have a real business.
Right.
So it's about if somehow people, when they use your product, when they use your service, they feel like, wow, I feel special, I feel important, I feel like I'm connected, I feel more relatedness, I feel more socially appreciated. That makes people happy, and what they remember. They don't remember the details about why they're so happy. They just remember, hey, somehow every time I use your product, I feel happier. So I naturally find myself coming back a lot. And those are the most important components in terms of, and if they feel that, they naturally want to share their experience, right? There's ways to hijack a person saying, there's what we call a scarcity strategy, which is Black Hat Extrinsic, saying, hey, we're dangling this cool thing in front of you. Oh, but you got to share with 3 friends before we give it to you, right? And they might share with 3 friends, but it's not genuine. Their friends get it, and first of all, they're like, oh, I'm spamming my friends, and hopefully they're not too angry, so they usually don't want to do it. And when their friends get it, they're like, oh, this is lame. Like this company is really spamming me. And sometimes it even hurts relationships. So the key is about how do you bring out those core drives, those feelings that, as opposed to having the functionality there. I think that's the most important thing.
Worthix is disrupting the market research industry with cutting-edge technology and a revolutionary methodology. Visit Worthix.com to learn how we're using artificial intelligence to improve customer experience at companies like Verizon, Jeep, Blizzard, HP, and L'Oreal. Well, I've been trying to develop this question, and I wanted to maybe wrap up with it. You talked about how you might not be able to come up with a solution for an entire industry, but when it comes to the more specifics, that's how you can work. So within customer experience, we have a huge pain in the market, which is surveys, because everybody hates surveys. Nobody likes spending that time answering those questions, going again and again and again. Do you think there's a way that we can apply gamification to surveys to make it more interesting and make people feel somehow more involved and maybe using some sort of core drivers to make them feel like they're part of something greater, and maybe even adding a reward system or boosts or something that can possibly make this process that people absolutely despise but is so valuable for companies? How do you think we could apply that?
So the most common way companies do this is through the extrinsic motivation strategy. It's core drive for ownership possession. Hey, take our survey, and either you'll get a gift card, a certificate, or a gift certificate, or you'll get a chance to win a big reward, right? And people like, okay, for that reward, I'll do this lame thing that I don't enjoy, and some people will do it, some people won't. And some people, because they only care about the reward, they're not even sincerely taking the survey. They're just looking the easiest options going there.
Right. And then it's eliminated because market research can't even use those answers. They're not valid.
Yeah. Sometimes if it's just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, it's detectable, but sometimes it's not even easily detectable. Which is why then there's additional questions, right, to see if you're consistent. Like, so it's like the same question repeats 3 times in 25 questions because they want to see if you actually mean it or you're just randomly saying stuff. Yes, and of course that adds desired behavior and makes it a harder process to motivate. But if you think about it, there's actually a lot of games online that are just taking quizzes, right? Technically, it's very similar. Hey, how do you feel about this? What do you think? Like, answer these 20 questions, figure out which Avenger you are. Right? And people love doing that. There's no reward, there's nothing. They just like to do it.
BuzzFeed quizzes.
Yeah, they're literally game quiz companies that make hundreds of millions of dollars just by doing that. And so it's like, how do you create that gap? How do you connect that together? So first of all, if you can, and the first step is hard, right? There's 2 types of desire: getting people to click on the link to the survey, assuming it's digital. That is not easy, right? Because that's when they think, I'm too busy, I'll do it later. And then there's another thing about when they're in the survey, how to make them finish it. Now, when they're in the survey, it's easier in terms of what's useful is every time they answer something, you give them unique feedback. Like, hey, did you know blah, blah, blah? So many people think the same thing. Or, hey, based on your answer, here's a little bit interesting trivia. So now it's that core drive 7, unpredictable curiosity. Hey, that's interesting. I wonder what they'll say if I answer this next question. Oh, that's interesting. We do that for registration forms too. Hey, did you know 27,000 people are also in your age group or on our platform, or 50,000 people from your region? But sometimes there's just funny trivia, sometimes there's jokes. So make it more pleasurable to answer each question as opposed to you finish the whole thing. One thing that is gathering some more popularity is, hey, if you finish survey, you'll see the answers of other people, right? And that does motivate others. Like, hey, I'm curious too to see how many people love this character as much as I do, or whatnot. So there's a lot of little things you can do on that step. The first step is how to get people to take the action in the first place. And if there's a way to add core drive 3 empowerment of creativity and feedback, and also even some kind of belief system, so have a faction. So it's like, hey, we want to find out if you believe, if people believe in A, do this more, or B, do this more. And they're like, oh, I totally have an opinion on this topic. Like, I'm totally a atheist, so I want to make sure I answer my side of things. And they jump into something that people are passionate about, which is weird because because people are passionate about being an atheist, which is, I'm passionate about not believing in something. But like you have the factions. So we have times where it's like, hey, do you believe, so the first question in emails, do you believe courage or compassion is more important for good customer service, right? And this is for a client we have for internal training. And they're like, I'm not sure. Is it courage usually mean outreaching to people, or is it compassion helping people? And then it's like that decides if they're part of the courage team or compassion team. So if it is not easy, it takes a lot of thinking. Every case is different based on the company you're dealing with. But it's if in that email to ask for it, if it makes people think a little bit, if it makes people feel like that's interesting, like I really want to have a say in this, and you even have a little bit of storytelling, talk about the epic meaning and calling, I think that does motivate people to look forward to that process more, making it feel more fun. And sometimes, so that's making it fun. Then it's more about, sometimes you have the thing where it's like, hey, you have this charity angle, that's another little bit of epic meaning and calling. For each person who finished the survey, we give a little bit to a charity or something. So we're actually making the world a little better when you help us make things more valuable. Sometimes the humor helps. Not every company is happy to do this, but it's like help us be less of a pain in the wherever in the spleen. And so just by a company admitting that, yeah, we know that the experience we give you is painful and you're agonized and you hate this. So we joke about it. It's like, hey, tell us how we can stop being so annoying. Actually, people are like, hey, that's kind of funny. They're actually making fun of themselves. So yeah, of course. And then it's like, yeah, I want you guys to be better. I want to have a better experience when I call my cable company, right? No one looks forward to that.
Is that like uniting against a common enemy or something like that? I remember you talking about this once, where you all, like you gave the example of Waze, where everyone is together in a common goal of defeating an enemy. And if you can somehow make like bad service or an annoying process into an enemy, then people will kind of rally together against it.
Yeah, literally for that client with retail servicing, there was a narrative about there is an epidemic in the world, which is bad customer service, and it grows from one place to another. And this one retail store has been chosen to be the heroes to save the day and bring the balance back into the force of good customer service and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's funny because there was actually a campaign that was very successful, saying, hey, I think it might be sending out surveys or something. But they said, or asking for actually, they were asking for donations. Okay, so they mail people all the time about donations, and then one of the ones that was so successful just says, hey, if you donate to us, we'll stop mailing you for an entire year. Like we'll stop pestering you. And what happens is that's funny. People actually open it, and then you can actually click, yeah, don't email me ever, don't mail me in a year, or hey, I don't mind, or mail me for, a month later is okay.
Yeah, that was funny. Email me again.
Yeah, and actually a lot of people that donate money, but then they still click, they still check the box that says, yeah, feel free to still do this, send me mail packages. Because again, it's black hat versus white hat, right? They want to donate, they want to make a difference. If you do it, you still feel happy about yourself, but you don't get to it. And so when it says, hey, do this to stop feeling guilty. Sometimes when people ignore it, they feel guilty, or it's like, hey, they feel annoyed, like stop annoying me. So they open it and start doing it. And as they do the process, like, I guess it's not that bad. So
right.
I guess they can ask me again if they want. And so actually very, very few people check, don't mail me again, or mail me in 1 year, even though that was the promise at the beginning. They just said, yeah, feel free to mail me more. Yeah, so a lot of there's all these little tactics you can think about to stand out and increase responses. But again, each case is different, and it probably takes more than like a 7-minute brainstorming to nail down that ideal solution for any particular company.
Well, that was awesome. There was so much stuff in there, and I know that you have a website that people can go to where they can get to know all of this information and kind of dig deeper into your methodology and your service and everything, right?
Yep. So a lot of the broader entry-level stuff is on my website, ukaichao.com. And also you can can check out my book, Actionable Gamification, Beyond Points, Badges, and Leaderboards. It's on Amazon. For the more advanced crowd who wants to take that further and know how to apply every detail into their lives, I have something called Octalysis Prime. So it's based on the main name suggests, it's a subscription membership, but there's like 300 tutorial videos on it already. It's a gamified platform to learn about gamification. And I'm making 3 to 5 videos, more videos every week. And I'm just sharing the entirety of all my knowledge there. And also applications to different industry like customer service.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Yukai. This was fascinating. You left us with lots of ideas of how we can improve customer experience, how we could apply gamification and everything from talent to experience, etc. And we look forward to following your career as you continue to expand on this concept.
Thank you. It was great fun being here.
Thank you for listening to Voices of Customer Experience. If you'd like to hear more or get a full podcast summary, visit the episode details page or go to blog.worthix.com/podcasts. This episode of Voices of Customer Experience was hosted and produced by Mary Drummond, co-hosted by James Conrad and edited by Nick Gomez. Blog copy and summary by Emma Waldron.